Most cream cheese on store shelves is not actually cream cheese. I know how that sounds. It sounds like some late-night dorm room conspiracy theory. But I want you to walk over to your fridge, grab that plastic tub you've been buying for years, and look at the packaging. The color is that familiar clinical white. The smell is vaguely tangy. The texture is smooth. It looks like what you expect. But once you understand what is actually happening inside those little foil-sealed tubs, once you see how the formulation works, you will never look at a dairy case the same way again. Here is the secret the industry figured out a long time ago. Cream is expensive. Water is cheap. And if you can engineer a system that makes water behave like cream, hold its shape, spread smoothly, look dense and rich, you can sell water at cream prices, and nobody asks any questions. That system exists. It's been refined over decades, and right now it is sitting in your refrigerator. This isn't a mystery. It's just food science meeting corporate finance. The cream cheese category is worth billions of dollars globally. Millions of households buy it every single week, and the overwhelming majority of those buyers assume they're getting something simple. Milk, cream, cultures, salt. 4 ingredients, an ancient process, nothing to hide. But flip the container. Read the fine print on the back label. The ingredient list tells a completely different story. Today, we are auditing that story. We're exposing 5 brands that quietly replaced the traditional process with a chemical workaround, and identifying 5 brands that still make cream cheese the way it was actually supposed to be made. And I will tell you right now, the #1 brand on our real list completely blindsided me, because it's not the boutique, expensive brand you'd expect. I spent weeks going through every major product on shelves, auditing ingredient decks, cross-referencing FDA labeling rules, and tracing which conglomerates own which products. The results were not what I expected, and by the end of this, you'll know exactly what you're paying for. To understand the scam, you need to understand the original process. Real cream cheese is at its core almost embarrassingly simple. You take milk and cream. You introduce lactic acid bacteria. Those bacteria ferment the mixture, acidifying it, and over time the proteins tighten and the fat coalesces into a dense, naturally stable structure. No additives required. The chemistry does the work. That's the whole process. Now here's where the economics come in. To produce 1 pound of traditional cream cheese, you need a substantial quantity of dairy fat. Cream is one of the most expensive components in food manufacturing. So at some point, a very smart and very financially motivated food scientist asked a simple question. What if we could keep the texture but use less cream? The answer was hydrocolloids. You know them as carrageenan, xanthan gum, guar gum, and locust bean gum. These are not random chemicals. They are a class of ingredients that bind water molecules and create viscosity. Or in other words, they make water thick. They make water feel rich. They simulate the mouthfeel of fat without any actual fat being present. This is a logistical magic trick. You replace expensive cream with cheap water, add a hydrocolloid system to hold it all together, and the consumer gets something that looks identical and tastes close enough. Your cost per unit drops, your margins improve, your shareholders are happy. And legally, it all holds up because of one single word. The Food and Drug Administration has a specific standard of identity for cream cheese. It requires a minimum of 33% milk fat and a maximum of 55% moisture. Products that meet this standard can be called cream cheese. Full stop. But here is the loophole the industry exploited. If a product is labeled a cream cheese spread, those rules become far more flexible. More moisture is permitted. More stabilizers are allowed. The fat threshold shifts. And because spread is just one small word tucked into the label, often in a font you won't notice from 3 feet away, manufacturers can reformulate the entire product while keeping the visual identity of the brand intact. Same packaging, same colors, same front-of-pack claims about freshness. Completely different internal formulation. That's not an accident, that's a strategy. And we're starting the audit with the brands that have mastered it. Now that we've established that the industry is essentially selling you expensive water held together by industrial glue, we need to talk names. We're starting the skip list, the products that have optimized the dairy right out of the container. I want to be clear, these companies aren't breaking the law. They are simply masters of the loophole. They know that as long as they put the word spread in small enough type, they can feed you a chemistry experiment and call it breakfast. Number 5 on the list is Arla Foods and their processed cream cheese lines. If you've spent any time in a suburban grocery store, you've seen Arla. They position themselves as this wholesome, transparent dairy cooperative from Europe. But at the scale they operate, transparency is a marketing department, not a production method. Arla is a massive global machine, and when you're shipping to dozens of countries, you cannot afford the inconsistency of real fermentation. Real bacteria are moody. They don't always produce the same texture. So Arla engineers that unpredictability out. They replace the slow, biological process of ripening with an industrial formulation process. They lean heavily on stabilizers and protein isolates to ensure that every single unit, whether it's sold in London or Los Angeles, behaves exactly the same way. It's uniform, it's shelf-stable, and it's technically dairy, but the soul of the product, the actual fermentation that defines cream cheese, has been optimized away in favor of a predictable logistics chain. You're buying industrial consistency, not food. Number 4 is a ghost in the machine, the dairy farmers of America and their massive private label production. Here is the reality of the American grocery store. Most of those store brand tubs, the ones with the generic logo of your local supermarket, aren't made by that supermarket. They are produced by massive dairy conglomerates like DFA. These facilities manufacture at a scale that would make a steel mill look intimate. If you flip the label on your value or store brand tub, look for the manufacturer code. What you'll find is a formulation built on reassembled parts. Instead of starting with whole, rich cream and letting it culturize, these products often use whey protein concentrate and milk protein concentrate. They take the isolated components of milk, the leftovers of other processes, and try to reconstruct the structure of cream cheese using these powders. It's efficient for the balance sheet, but it's not the same thing as starting with the whole ingredient. You are paying for a reconstructed dairy puzzle, and the pieces don't quite fit without a lot of chemical help. Number 3 is where it starts to get personal. 365 by Whole Foods Market Cream Cheese Spread. This one is a betrayal of the highest order. When you walk into a Whole Foods, you are making an implicit deal with the brand. You are agreeing to pay a premium, sometimes double the price, because you believe the sourcing is better and the ingredients are cleaner. You're paying for the Whole Foods halo. But then you read the back of their spread tub, guar gum, locust bean gum, the exact same industrial stabilizer system showing up in the budget brands at the corner bodega is sitting right there in the premium organic aisle, just wrapped in more sophisticated packaging. The premium grocery environment creates a perception of quality that the ingredient deck simply does not support. You are paying for the branding of clean eating while consuming the same engineered thickeners used to cut costs in the bottom-tier brands. It's a masterclass in marketing over substance. Number 2 is the clearest example of cost optimization at work. Great value cream cheese spread from Walmart. At least Walmart is honest about what this is. It's positioned as a budget alternative for people who just want something white to put on a bagel. But the level of engineering here is staggering. When you examine the formulation, you see modified food starch and multiple stabilizers combined with an elevated moisture content. Remember what I said earlier? Water is cheap. By using modified starch, they can hold even more water in the emulsion, allowing them to use even less actual dairy fat. The financial stake here is clear. You're paying less per unit, sure, but the ratio of what you're paying versus what you're actually getting, the real dairy fat, is a losing game. You aren't getting a discount on cream cheese. You are buying a cream cheese-shaped gel. And finally, number one, the brand that defines the category, Philadelphia Cream Cheese Spread by Kraft Heinz. This is the one that should genuinely upset you because Philadelphia isn't just a brand, it is the category. For most Americans, Philadelphia is cream cheese, and Kraft Heinz knows that. If you look at the classic silver foil block, the formulation is actually relatively decent. But the moment you move to the Philadelphia spread, the mask slips. Look at the list: carrageenan, guar gum, xanthan gum. These three ingredients are doing the heavy lifting that cream is supposed to do. They are binding water, creating that smooth, spreadable texture, and holding the structure together so the product can survive months of distribution in varying temperatures. The front of the package screams, "Made with fresh milk and real cream." And legally, that's not a lie. There is milk and there is cream in there, but there is also an entire stabilizer system layered on top of that dairy foundation to make a lower fat, higher water formulation perform like something it isn't. You are paying for one of the most recognized food brands in history, and a significant portion of what you're buying is a very effective chemical illusion. They've spent decades convincing us that this engineered texture is what quality feels like, while they pocket the difference in production costs. If you're starting to feel a little bit of fridge rage, good, you should. You've been sold a simulation. But before we get to the brands that are actually doing it right, I'm going to give you 2 tests you can do in your own kitchen to see if your favorite brand is lying to your face. And now, the reason you didn't just throw your phone across the room in a fit of dairy-induced despair. Why sitting through this forensic audit of your refrigerator was worth it. Because once you see through the illusion of the spreadable dairy system, you realize there is a better way. There are brands that didn't get the memo that they were supposed to be optimizing for the shareholder instead of the eater. These are the brands that actually passed the melt test. These are the products that don't fight back when you apply heat because they aren't held together by a network of industrial gums. They are held together by biology. The real list starts at number 5 with Vermont Creamery. Now let's be honest, this is the premium end of the spectrum. You are going to pay more for this, but you are paying for something that actually exists. Vermont Creamery earns its position by sticking to a small batch production model and traditional fermentation. While the big players are trying to figure out how to make water behave like fat, Vermont Creamery just uses a higher butterfat content. It is a radical concept. If you want a product to feel rich, use rich ingredients. Chefs reach for this when the texture and flavor actually matter to the final dish, because it behaves like real food. The ingredient list is exactly what it should be: clean, short, and recognizable. This is what cream cheese looks like when quality is the actual priority, not just a marketing claim designed to distract you from a list of thickeners. Number 4 is Green Valley Creamery, and they deserve a spot because they solved a legitimate problem without resorting to a chemistry set. Green Valley makes lactose-free cream cheese. Usually, specialty dairy is a playground for additives, because when you take something out, you have to find a way to put the structure back in. But instead of reformulating the product with a cocktail of stabilizers to mimic the mouthfeel of real dairy, Green Valley uses enzymes to break down the lactose while leaving the structure of the cream cheese completely intact. It is a scientific solution that works with the dairy, not around it. It's a reminder that food innovation doesn't always have to mean cheaper and more fake. You can use science to make food more accessible without turning it into a simulated dairy emulsion. Number 3 is Kelowna Supernatural. If you want the baseline, the reference point for what this product looked like before industrial optimization got its hands on it, this is it. Kelowna operates on a model of small-scale sourcing and minimal processing. They use grass-fed milk, and they don't homogenize to the point of oblivion. When you look at their cream cheese, you don't see stabilizers, you don't see protein isolates, and you definitely don't see a hydrocolloid system trying to engineer water into the appearance of cream. It reflects what happens when a brand refuses to scale beyond what its ingredients can honestly support. It's dense, it's rich, and it has that slight resistance when you try to spread it. That resistance is the sound of real fat doing its job. Number 2 on the real list is Nancy's Probiotic Foods. Nancy's leans into fermentation as the core of its identity, but not as a marketing angle or a buzzword on the front of the tub. For them, it is a literal production method. While the big brands are using gum systems because they are cheaper than patience, Nancy's allows live cultures to do the work over time. The result is a natural thickness and a slight, authentic tanginess that you just cannot replicate with natural flavors or acidity regulators. It's a texture that comes from biology rather than chemistry. This is closer to how cream cheese was originally developed. It's a product that respects the clock, and you can taste that patience in every bite. It doesn't feel like a gel. It feels like a cultured dairy product, because that is exactly what it is. And then we get to number 1, Organic Valley. This one genuinely surprised me because it's not niche. It's not some only available in 3 stores in Vermont boutique brand. This is a brand you can actually find at scale in mainstream grocery stores across the United States, from Kroger to Target, at a price point that isn't stratospheric. And yet the ingredient list reads like it was written in 1950. Organic milk, organic cream, salt, cultures. That's the list. No gums, no stabilizers, no modified starches, no protein concentrates, and nothing that needs a PhD to explain. The reason Organic Valley can pull this off while their competitors are busy engineering spreads comes down to their business model. Organic Valley is a farmer-owned cooperative. In a traditional corporate structure, the goal is to squeeze the supply chain to maximize the margin for the shareholder. But when the farmers are the stakeholders, the incentive changes entirely. The quality isn't a differentiator for a marketing app. It's a reflection of what the farmers themselves are producing. When the people making the food are also the people selling it, the motivation to cut corners with cheap thickeners is fundamentally different. They are selling you the cream they actually grew. This is real cream cheese produced at scale for a reasonable price. And the most tragic part is that most people walk right past it to grab a tub of stabilized water because the packaging is more familiar. Now that you know the difference, you can't unsee it. I don't want you to walk away from this investigation just memorizing a list of 10 brands. I want you to have the tools to audit any dairy case in any store in the country, whether you're at a high-end Wegmans in the suburbs or a corner bodega in the city. Here are the concrete rules for your next grocery run. Rule 1. Apply the 4-ingredient filter. It's a binary check: milk, cream, salt, cultures. That is the gold standard for real food. The moment you see a 5th ingredient, the manufacturer has started a conversation with a chemical supplier to replace a conversation with a dairy farmer. Rule 2. Be ruthless about the word spread. That tiny word is a legal force field that allows the FDA to look the other way while a company jacks up the moisture content and lowers the fat. If the packaging says spread, you aren't buying cheese, you're buying a simulation of cheese. Rule 3. Hunt for the gums. Xanthan, guar, locust bean, and carrageenan are the industry's favorite ways to make cheap water feel like expensive fat. If those are on the list, put the container back. You are being charged cream prices for a stabilized water system. Rule 4. Avoid the reassembled parts. If the label mentions whey protein concentrate or milk protein concentrate, they are reassembling a product from industrial leftovers and powders rather than starting with whole, fresh ingredients. Rule 5. Check the ownership. Farmer-owned cooperatives like Organic Valley often have a fundamental incentive to keep quality high because the people selling the product are the ones actually producing the milk. Large corporate conglomerates like Kraft Heinz are beholden to shareholders, which means they are biologically programmed to find the cheapest possible workaround that the law allows. Rule 6. Trust your kitchen, not their marketing. If you're unsure about what's already in your fridge, use the milk test. Throw a spoonful in a pan over low heat. Real cream cheese melts into a glossy, natural liquid. The engineered stuff turns into a sticky, rubbery, clumpy mess because the gums are fighting to hold a structure that nature never intended. The recurring theme of this entire audit is that we've been conditioned to mistake industrial optimization for quality. We've been sold a version of cream cheese that is easier to ship, easier to store, and significantly more profitable to produce. But it is fundamentally harder to call it food. The industry is banking on the fact that you're too busy, too tired, or too distracted to flip the container and read the fine print. They've spent billions of dollars on farm-fresh fonts and pastoral imagery to keep you from noticing the stabilizers and the starches. But the moment you stop being marketing prey and start being an auditor of your own life, that entire illusion falls apart. You have the power to demand the real process over the corporate shortcut every time you reach for a shelf. I appreciate you sticking through this deep dive with me. This kind of investigation only works because people like you are actually willing to look past the branding and seek out the data. If this audit changed the way you look at your breakfast, do me a favor and share it with that one friend who takes their Sunday morning bagel routine way too seriously. They deserve to know what they're actually smearing on that toasted everything bagel. Hit the like button to help get this information in front of more people who are tired of the bait and switch in the grocery aisle. Drop a comment below and tell me which household staple we should audit next. I'm thinking we might need to take a long, hard look at what's actually inside those extra virgin olive oil bottles, or why your maple syrup has never seen a tree. Thanks for watching, stay skeptical, and remember, the truth is always in the ingredient list. I'll see you in the next one.